This is the West Virginia Capitol Report. Funding for the West Virginia Capitol Report is brought to you by Mark A. Hunt and Associates and by the AFL-CIO of West Virginia.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Capitol Report. I'm Bill Laird, along with co-host Dave Perry. We're coming to you from the Capitol Building in Charleston to bring you information concerning the actions of the regular session of the West Virginia Legislature. We're at the point in the session where we're nearing the halfway point, and certainly educational issues have been front and center as far as major agenda items currently under consideration here, and we're very fortunate to have two leaders in the field of public education with us as our guests today. And David, would you like to introduce our guests?
Absolutely, Bill. We're very honored to have with us the president of the WVEA, Dale Lee, and the president of the AFT, Christine Campbell. And of course, folks, this is the first time WVA and AFT have been together on an issue in a number of years, isn't it?
No, we were together on many issues last year and even the year before.
I see. Let's talk about some of the issues that have come forth here during the last 24 days. And as recent as last Saturday, the Paycheck Protection Plan, or the Paycheck Deception Plan as it's been called. How will that affect teachers and school employees and state employees across the state?
Well, we actually have seen this legislation come up on a couple different years, and last year it actually passed by a very narrow margin in the House of Delegates. In the Senate, a little bit wider margin, but the governor vetoed the bill, knowing full well that this bill is not something we should be focusing when it comes to having the voices of our membership and just education employees, private sector and public sector employees. Their voices need to be heard, and what this bill does is it actually makes it a much more bureaucratic system of checks and balances when we currently already have a signed contract with our members to deduct dues from their paycheck, and they can opt out at any time in public education. So there's no need for this bill. It feels like a direct attack on the voices of union members and public employee or school employees in general, and it shouldn't be the priority here when we have so many things that we should be dealing with in education.
So it will disallow payroll deductions for professional organizations and union members.
Well, under the current bill, it makes it where you have to give your authorization each year to have your dues taken out. Right now, once I sign the form that says I want to be a member and have my dues taken out, that does me throughout my career until I decide I want to do it, I want to make a change or want to stop that. But under this bill, you would have to get authorization each year, which would be hugely burdensome to the payroll departments at the board. It really is an attempt because a couple thousand people came up on Friday. It's an attempt to shut them up. They don't want their voices heard. They want to be able to say, no, we know what's best. And it was clear in Senate Judiciary Friday evening from the number of teachers and service professionals that were in the meeting that they want nothing to do with this, that it's their money. They have the right to say how they want their money spent.
Let me broaden the lens a little more in the sense that, obviously the ability to set the agenda determines what it is we do and do not talk about. And again, from the outside looking in, it seems to me that a lot of legislative energy is being burnt on Tebow bill and things that, homeschool issues, when really perhaps the crux of the issue is, how do we keep and retain qualified professional personnel teaching in our classrooms. We've got hundreds of vacancies statewide in our classrooms. Teachers have gone without any types of increase in their compensation for years. Those are the true grit issues, I suppose, that face this legislature, but nonetheless doesn't perhaps get the type of attention that it deserves. Where are we at this stage in the legislature in terms of really addressing those fundamental underlying issues that truly impact and affect public education in West Virginia? You know, where's the corn, where's the fodder, where are we this session?
Well, it's exactly 727 vacancies this year, according to the second month report from the Department of Education. And you're exactly right. What are we doing to attract and retain highly qualified educators and school service personnel in West Virginia? The folks that are here are staying here because they love West Virginia, they love our kids, and every time we lose another highly qualified educator out of West Virginia, that's another classroom that is losing quality instruction. So I hope that the community members and the parents are also paying attention to this, because it affects the quality of education that their children are receiving. And when the legislature is talking about attacking seniority rights, those folks are more qualified, they're more experienced, and those are the people who we're trying to keep in West Virginia. So there are other issues, and Dale can talk about the PEIA and where we are in the salary increases, but when we're talking about privatization of public education or defunding public education, all of this directly impacts a child's education in West Virginia.
There is not one bill that's moving that has a positive effect on our classroom, on our public school kids every day. These other bills are just to distract and take away the time and energy from the things that would help our public schools. As Christine said, we know we have 727 vacancies. It's a direct reflection of the pay. If we don't increase compensation and get it to a competitive level, that number is going to continue to grow. 2 years ago it was 600, now it's 727. What's it going to be next year? 800, 850? And it's not just in a math or science, it's all across the board. It's elementary education, it's phys ed, social studies, areas that were unheard of years ago, but it's everywhere along the line. When you compound that with the changes in the PEIA, with the Go 365 and the total family income, which will cause many dual household family teachers and service professionals to actually see an increase in their premiums more than the proposed 1% raise. People have just had enough. They're to the point where they don't want to take this anymore, and that's why you had 2,000 people here Friday. They're at wits' end.
Of course, Dale, you said the PEIA, and beyond PEIA as far as stability, and as Bill said, teachers wanting to stay in West Virginia, the retirement system has been affected as well with incentives that used to be there.
Well, they propose every year to want to refinance the retirement plan. It will be paid off right now in the year 2034. We've been able to stop any discussions of refinancing the retirement plan so that we stay on schedule to do that. Nothing's going to happen in retirement until you get that fully funded, until you get that payoff plan.
But I also understand that as far as stability in the teaching profession, it used to be that your sick leave days could be used for PEIA premiums. It used to be that your sick leave days could be used for additional time as far as your retirement. And the legislature, in its omnipotent wisdom, has done away with that.
Sure, in the last 3 years, I think.
They have changed those requirements in 2015 and 2010. So we have seen the whittling away of that. There was also a bill proposed that would make your personal leave all personal, but it also would have new teachers coming in only be able to carry over, I think it was 30 days was in the bill. And we believe that bill's not going anywhere, but the fact that these things are being proposed is another example of things we're not doing to attract and retain highly qualified educators in our schools.
I know since I served in the legislature, it appears that every accomplishment that has been done has been eroded over the last 10 years.
Well, it has been a constant attack on public education and teacher and service professional rights. That's why this is not just happening now. This anger is not just happening now. It's built up over the past few years, and it got to a boiling point and finally erupted on Friday.
And our folks want to see a significant increase that will offset the cost of their PEIA insurance, and they want to see a continuous funding stream to offset the rising cost of health care. We can't offer, or the legislature should not be offering, a pay raise that's so insignificant that it's not even going to cover the increase in their health care benefits.
You know, I guess kind of wanting to go back to sort of the broad strokes. I think we could get down in the weeds on a lot of specific issues, but for our viewers and the people in West Virginia, you know, the future of our state lies with our young people.
Absolutely.
And it makes perfect sense to me that we want the best and the brightest in our classrooms, teaching our children, preparing them for the life and the future of West Virginia. And in order to do that, you know, how do we attract teachers to the profession? I saw some statistics. We have fewer kids choosing teaching as a profession. Our baccalaureate institutions are less people wanting to be teachers, despite the fact we have you know, unmet needs and demands for teachers. So I guess the bigger issues are you know, how do we develop you know, a permanent revenue stream where we can in fact move the ball down the field as far as teacher compensation? Is it within the budget capacity of the current state budget to identify those funds? You know, at the same time we're arguing about inventory taxes and diminishing revenues when you know, the monies to do these things are important. So have you all been working on creative ways in which to identify revenue sources that can be used to provide meaningful increases and enhancements in the benefit of areas of public education?
Well, both of you having served here in the legislature, you know that you can find money for anything that you make a priority, and that's what we've forgotten. We everything that comes along, they say this is the hindrance, this is what's keeping us from bringing business to West Virginia, and then you pass that, and then the next year it's this is the hindrance, this is what's keeping that from happening. Look at what we've done over the past few years. We've cut corporate net tax, we've taken away all kinds of business taxes, we've right to work, prevailing wage, taken away prevailing wage, and now we're saying we've got to do the inventory tax, and that's going to bring businesses into West Virginia. Not when you have 727 vacancies in the education system. What's going to bring businesses to West Virginia is a highly qualified, educated workforce, and you can't have that as long as you don't have highly qualified teachers in front of those kids every day. That's the only way you're going to have economic prosperity, is to have an education system that is second to none in this state, and you can't do that until you're paying the teachers competitive salaries.
Well, and so, on top of all of that, we also see these things actually affect the funding to our local education systems. And the talking about voucher programs and charter schools, that's also another thing that defunds our public schools. So when you put all of these things together, where's the evidence that we are making education a priority in West Virginia?
Absolutely, because I remember when 44% was the percent of the budget that went to education. Now I think
used to be 56%.
56%?
Yeah, about 20 years ago it was 56%. It's dropped down last year to 42%, but when you look at the money that actually goes to the classroom, That's down to about 28% because we're still paying into the retirement system and PEIA, and I don't count those dollars as going into the education system.
And I think one thing needs to be recognized too that hadn't been felt out there, that you guys represent more than just teachers, that you represent service personnel, state employees, state police, the whole spectrum of public employees.
We represent public employees. The CWA represents the state police, but these folks haven't seen a pay raise in, I think it's 13 years, and their actually starting pay is much lower than the teachers and more comparable to the service personnel. So we have to address all of these issues.
We only have educators as members, teachers, service professionals. Those are the members that we have. We don't deal with the public employee sector.
But we do.
Christine, Dale, obviously there are some things been occurring over the last few weeks relevant to what's been happening in Charleston as far as town meetings, informational pickets, for lack of a better word. We've had walk-ins, we've had discussions about walkouts. Of course, the Capitol was full of 2,000 some educators last Friday, I believe it was. Can you kind of bring us up to date as to what has happened, what you anticipate occurring over the next week or so before maybe an extreme action may occur?
Well, we started with the unrest and addressing that, meeting people where they are. They're frustrated. We know that they're angry, and we absolutely understand that anger and frustration. So we have been going out to the counties. They've scheduled meetings to gather information about what the different kinds of actions mean. And so also providing and getting our locals energized to do some local activities. So there are a lot of things planned through the next couple weeks. We're actually having a rally here on Saturday, the 17th, for folks to come down and show their support for public education. And I'm sure Dale can add to this with some other activities that we have going on.
Yeah, many counties are having town hall meetings this coming Saturday the 10th. Many of them have done informational picketing. Many counties have done walk-ins where the parents and students join together with the teachers to show support and walk into the school. There have been informational picketing at courthouses. Parents have been involved in picketing, particularly in Wyoming County. There were tons of parents out to show their support for public education. So it's really a grassroots effort to show that public education needs to be a concern and needs to be a priority. And it's not just the teachers that are saying it, it's the public and everyone.
I think you've hit it, Dale, and Christine both, that it appears that the John Q. public is in sentiment with what's going on with educators and what's happening.
I believe that.
And they understand pay, and they understand benefits and health insurance and so forth. So I think that's been very beneficial to the teachers. But I think they also need to understand this is something that hasn't just sprung up overnight, and it's something that has been coming on for a number of years, and the plans that are being put in place now are plans that are giving the legislature time to act or react.
Exactly.
Absolutely, and you know, we didn't get to 48th in the nation overnight. It's a long process of making education not a priority and not important, but it's time now to make that a priority, and we have to move those numbers. We have to make our salaries competitive because a teacher's working conditions are our students' learning conditions, and our students are being the ones that are hurt in all this.
Which is why we have coordinated between the two of us, calling all of our local presidents to a meeting next Sunday to, one, get a sense of where their locals are, what their priorities are. We know the priorities that are coming up over and over again, but we really want our folks to sit down and say, you know, this is where my county is, these are our top priorities, and the next steps, what we should be doing to really make sure that public education is the priority in West Virginia.
Unfortunately, our time has expired, but public education, a tremendously important public policy matter affecting the lives of our children, the future of the state of West Virginia, and Christine Campbell, Dale Lees, keep fighting the good fight, stand up for kids, do what we can to improve the education in West Virginia. Thanks for joining us here today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tom
Report.
McGee. It's dangerous out there.
We're going to go ahead
You
and take
get
a
hurt,
quick break
shift
and
the
be right
odds
back
in
to the
your
Capitol
favor.
Report. So
Call
stay
Mark
with us,
Hunt
everybody.
to get your just compensation and compensation for your injury. And if you have any criminal charge or if you get a DUI, be sure to call me at 304-642-6160.
The law firm of Mark Hunt and Associates, specializing in personal injury, DUI, and criminal defense. 304-344-1800.
Dan Hill Construction Company in Glen Ferris has over 33 years of local service. With county, state, and federal and church construction experience, we can design and build any type of project that will suit your needs. Once you select us for your project, we'll supply all the tools, labor, equipment, and materials to complete your project on budget and on time. We're a zero drugs tolerance company with an excellent safety record as a bonded and insured commercial contractor, with an outstanding relationship and payment record reputation with all of our subcontractors and suppliers. References available upon request. We are Dan Hill Construction Company, 9033 Midland Trail, Glen Ferris, West Virginia. 304-632-1600, license number WV001196, rated in the best top 50 government contractors in West Virginia.
From under the Gold Dome in Charleston, this is the West Virginia Capitol Report.
Welcome back to the Capitol Report as we continue today's show from the Capitol building in Charleston as we near the halfway point of the West Virginia Legislature, and we're joined by two distinguished members of the West Virginia State Senate. And David Perry, I'm going to give you the honor and opportunity to introduce our guest here.
Thank you, Bill, and it's my honor to introduce a former colleague of mine, Senator Bob Beach from the 13th District. Bob, welcome.
Thank you, Dave. Welcome.
And most recent senator from the 10th Senatorial District, Stephen Baldwin. We're glad with you today, Stephen.
Thank you. Am I your friend too, Dave?
Friend as well, coming from the 10th District of Fayette, Greenbrier, Monroe, and Summers County.
Yes,
Senator Beach, I understand you just recently introduced a piece of legislation regarding a local concern of the West Virginia Sports Hall of Fame.
We did. The bill came up actually today. It basically sets up a 21-member commission, and the responsibility of that commission is to find those folks out there in our communities that are worthy of being part of our Sports Hall of Fame here in the state of West Virginia. And that includes secondary schools, collegiate level, and professional level. And doing the research, we have a lot of folks that could go into that sports museum the very first year. But again, we leave it up to the commission to determine, where they're going to go and who's going to be in there. And then ultimately, we would like to see the physical location be in Marion County.
We're in the 24th day of the legislative session, and it appears that all the hot topic button issues are educators and public state employees. What have you seen happen and transpire over the last 24 days, Senator Beach?
Well, it's been an interesting few days here inside the Capitol with the folks coming in from Mingo, Wyoming, and Logan counties to express their opinions on the pay raise bill. And the day before that, as Senator Baldwin knows, we tried to get an amendment in there increasing that to 3% pay raise. And of course, Democrats were defeated on that issue, but not before we raised a little bit of a fuss and made folks aware of where Republicans are standing on this issue. And then moving forward to Friday with the final vote, there was a lot of very passionate speeches on the floor, dare I say poetic speeches on the floor in favor of helping our teachers and trying to fix this problem we have with recruiting and retention of educators here in the state.
Stephen, health insurance, PEI is a big issue that not only affects teachers, it affects other state employees as well. And some of the positions they've taken on that to go 365 and so forth. I'm sure you've been involved with that some.
Yes, sir. You're exactly right. I mean, those costs are rising for everybody, small business owners, folks across the state. But the folks who are feeling the pinch the hardest are folks who have such low wages. So, if you're only making a low-wage salary and you have those continually increasing healthcare prices, that's going to hurt you even more than it hurts other folks. So, yes, sir, I'm keenly aware of those. I've been receiving stories from folks across the state, and it's educators, it's adult protective services workers, child protective services workers, corrections officers, and we've got to do better for them.
Senator Baldwin, I have a question that may surprise you, but it's non-specific issue related. But, you began your service as a elected member of the West Virginia House of Delegates, which was one of 100 members in the House. Senator Beach started in the House. All of us have had service in the House, but due to the departure of Senator Miller from the state Senate, you were appointed by the governor to that body, and I always referred to the Senate as the greatest deliberative body in the state of West Virginia. Just for our viewers, how are you finding your service in the state Senate, a much larger geographic area, Fayette, Greenbrier, Summers, and Monroe counties? If you could comment on your transition from the House to the Senate and how you're finding your service in the state Senate.
Sure, I appreciate that question, Bill. I've got big shoes to fill, and those are your shoes and Ron Miller's shoes. But it's been an absolute honor to be able to do that. It is a larger geographic area to cover at this point, but that also provides a wonderful opportunity to meet more folks and build additional relationships. When I ran for the House last year, I ran a campaign based on relationships. Folks that I'd known, this was a community I grew up in and wanted to be able to help those folks. And so now I just have additional opportunities to get in touch with communities and see what their needs are. In terms of the Senate, you asked about how business is a little bit different. I have wonderful colleagues like Senator Beach here, and I have been refreshed by the deliberative nature of the Senate and the willingness of folks most of the time to work together in good faith to find solutions.
We're going to go ahead and take a quick break and be right back to close things out on the Capitol Report. So stay with us, everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tom McGee. It's dangerous out there. If you get hurt, shift the odds in your favor. Call Mark Hunt to get your just compensation and compensation for your injury. And if you have any criminal charge or if you get a DUI, be sure to call me at 304-642-6160.
The law firm of Mark Hunt and Associates, specializing in personal injury, DUI, and criminal defense. 304-344-1800.
Welcome back to the Capitol Report as we close out today's show, and we're joined by a good friend of ours, Josh Sword, the president of the state AFL-CIO. And Josh, welcome to the Capitol Report. And as they say, the beat goes on. There was some changes as a result of the 2014 election that created a climate here that certainly has resulted in any number of legislative initiatives, certainly contrary to the interests of working families in West Virginia, and I assume that that beat continues.
Well, that's what we're seeing, Bill. It started the very first bill in the 2015 session after Republicans gained control of both the House and the Senate was a bill to roll back coal mine safety standards. They followed that up with some biggies like right to work and prevailing wage, and now this year we're seeing an all-out war on our public employees. It's just a shame that the priority or the focus of this legislative leadership is to harm working families. It's very frustrating, but look, the reality is there's something that we can do about this, because every person up here that's making a decision on what bill becomes law or does not become law has to face off to at the ballot box, has to appear on the ballot box and get elected to be here. So there is an opportunity for our voices to be heard, and we're going to keep informing the public so that they know who their friends are and who their enemies are serving here in the legislature.
No doubt.
Of course, the last attack, or the last bill, we might say, happened last Friday when the teachers were here in mass.
Well, look,
and that was called the payroll Protection Act or Deception Act.
It's nothing short of an attempt to try to silence all the public employees that are angry and frustration right now, essentially making it illegal to withhold union dues. It's nothing but a slap in the face. Here's what we're seeing. We're seeing a focus on and an attack, the focus of attacking working families versus passing bills that will increase wages, provide for better benefits for their families. It just makes no sense. And quite frankly, enough is enough. We've got to do something about it.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for today's show, coming to you from the Capitol building here in Charleston. On behalf of my co-host, Dave Perry, I'm Bill Laird, thanking you all for tuning us in each week on the Capitol Report. Goodbye, everybody.